Good afternoon. Coming up on 4:30 p.m. local time here in Sarasota, Florida on Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. Picking up where I left off, I am going to utilize this video to introduce officially storyline number 6, the farm. At the most general level, the farm. That is this storyline. Now, the farm had been introduced more detailed than anything else thus far in recent videos. Therefore, in addition, in this video to introducing it, I'm also going to proceed and speak about one of the greatest areas of lesson learning that my 13 seasons at this farm afforded me. And that pertains to money and the prioritization of making money and profit and where that fell in my farm experience and how it represented from day one an extreme end of that spectrum of, if this is a spectrum of when we're talking in the business world, where on the spectrum a business lies in terms of the importance of making money, right? And how and to what degree the importance of making money trumps the importance of what the employees making that money for the company, how well they're being treated within that model. Okay, so spectrum of making money, the farm falls on one extreme side where it was clear from moment one when I landed there in 2008 that making money and making a profit was nowhere near the top priority of this place. Now, contrast that to 90% of all the other work experiences I've had in my adulthood, okay? Especially experiences in, I would say, the last decade, and where they fall on the spectrum, which is quite literally on the opposite extreme, where in some cases, like in Iron Man, I used to say they might as well put giant dollar signs at the entrance of our expos, our expositions, where all our vendors were, because it became so glaringly obvious, certainly to me, that the money was such a distinctly higher priority in making as much money as possible ahead of everything else. Now, let me also be clear. Listen, I have nothing against making money. I do not personally, I do not want to be impoverished and poor. I just happen to be somebody that lives a relatively simple life and doesn't really desire, besides my basic needs being met, being able to maintain a safe place of my own in terms of a home at a reasonable cost, which that's a whole nother video in and of itself, where that has gone, and the opportunity for that in this town is almost non-existent. And that's a whole nother video. But I don't have anything against making money. What I'm trying to give voice to is where I personally like the frequency or vibration of doing business and making money, like the unique combination of things where I fall, and trying to find others out there who are looking to have the balance that I'm looking to have. I'm not looking to be poor, absolutely not. But the reality is I don't really need or want much more. Like I don't need to be making 6 figures as a single woman with no children. I'm not going to say I don't want, that I wouldn't welcome that if somehow it was being able to be done with integrity and with honesty and with transparency, and most of all with honoring all the people around me that may be helping me make that money. I don't have anything against money per se, but when money and making profit trumps the well-being of the human beings associated with it, when the human beings on the ground floor, the ones lowest on the rung, who are often doing the hardest work and the actual physical labor, that without which none of the money would be made, I've got a problem with the disproportionate gaps that have ensued in recent decades. I do not feel like this was the case in my childhood, in the 70s, 80s. I was only born in the 70s, but in the 80s and even in the early 90s, there just seemed to be walloping more, levels of integrity and principled actions. And yet post-college, all I seem to have experienced is just walloping amounts of greed and huge gaps between owners and the top of the pyramids of any company I've ever worked for, including nonprofits, by the way, and the ground floor. And because I'm just not wired to I'm not wired to take advantage of human beings. I'm not wired to be deceitful. I'm not wired to have I'm just not wired to play the game that I witnessed in a lot of different industries. Because it's not that I don't have the intellect or the skill set or the capabilities. Most of my peers that I grew up with all the way through college are now, a lot of them represent the tippy tops of a lot of these hierarchies. And I'm not trying to pass judgment on them either. I'm just saying that, to me, a more equitable share of profit is something that I'm looking to have and to share with others. Like, I'm looking to be the best I can be. I'm looking to make as most money as I can with ethics and integrity and honor as well, and then be able to have my own funds to go out in the world and spend it very differently. So I'm not sure if any of that is particularly clear, but it's all to say that the farm has helped me in a greater effort to come into balance. We are living in a world where the spectrum is so, it doesn't matter what spectrum you're talking about, it would seem that the world at large is forcing us all on one end of a spectrum or another, and there's just not much in between. As somebody who spent most of my life in the extremities, it's taken me a long time to even begin to get familiar with what balance even feels like, looks like, or is. And now that I've got that, more so than I ever have, it's not to say that I don't have work to do. I know that there is tremendous peace in balance. There is much more health involved with balance. There is much more, it's just an overall better way for me to live, which is balance. So I'm seeking balance in a world that seems to be more and more imbalanced by the day. And interestingly, the farm represents, and I would say it doesn't even matter, it's not about this side being right and this side being wrong or vice versa. I would sort of argue, at least for myself, that they're equally not what I'm interested in. So I'm not going to say equally bad, but I'm not interested in either end of the spectrum. And when I first landed at the farm, it was refreshing in so many ways to be somewhere where it was so clearly not about the dollar. But along with not valuing the dollar, I would say came a disrespect of the dollar as well. And simultaneously, you would think that since there was not an aim for profit, that would automatically mean that there was tremendous care for the employees. Now, we were compensated incredibly fairly at the farm, very, very fairly. What our farmer paid us by the hour ended up being leaps and bounds more than, as comparison, what I ever got on the Ironman circuit. If you would break down my 80-hour work weeks, what I was ended up getting per hour. So he compensated us very fairly on the dollar side of it. But I'm also looking for more of two-way streets between employers and employees. In fact, I'm looking to create and be part of not working for people, but working with others. And that means you've got to have an open line of communication of what we're giving and receiving in the relationship. And by virtue of that, by extension, it matters what the employee is utilizing the experience for, what they're looking to grow, how they're looking to grow or develop. That is all, that's what I'm looking to be a part of in terms of a work environment. So again, the farm represents work, and I've referenced how it represented where I think more of our models of business are going in the future. But from my experience and my assessment, it was highly dysfunctional. It had the pieces in place, but the way it was enacted was not at all in a functional, healthy way, certainly not to serve me. And in its greatest respect, one of the biggest pieces was this interesting extreme that it represented as it pertains to the dollar. And like I said, how that related into and tied into the value of the employees and how the treatment of the employees and to what extent was their communication and an expression of more of a two-way street. We're used to the old model being, hey, I'm the employer, you're the employee, you should be grateful you have a job, and you come into my world as the employer and it's my way. You don't like it, don't let the door hit you in the ass. Again, absolutely, that's how most world of businesses are, but I'm looking to be an example of a different sort of model. And as I proceed here with future videos, I'm working to be a little bit more clear, a little bit more direct of the type of business and the type of doing work and what that looks like in Alyson's world, and what I'm then trying to attract in terms of, hey, I know I'm not the only one out there who has these particular values or desires. And as we work to try to bring together a different collaborative effort for meeting needs and wants out in the world, I feel like this is a necessary step to try to speak to all of these things a little bit more clearly. So, storyline number 6, the farm. And one of the first lessons that I'm going to introduce here at a high level is the spectrum of money and where the prioritization of money and making profit lands on that spectrum, and then how it's intricately related to then the treatment of the employees. The farm represented one side, and going into it, I automatically thought this was going to be a better thing, better in every way, shape, or form, because it was the first time I had ever experienced the other end of the spectrum. Almost all the other experience was working for companies and people where profit was the most important thing, and we were just, quite honestly, pawns in the pursuit of that. And rather than being hired on for specific characteristics of Alyson, more or less I was just filling a number on a spreadsheet, right? Like, oh, we need this many people to run this event, and just checking in on a spreadsheet. And going forward, I want to be selected and asked and working with people for the specifics of what Alyson specifically and uniquely brings to the table, which, yes, is skill sets that could be checked off that's necessary to produce an event or to meet some sort of need in this particular example of doing work, but more going forward, where I dream and what I dream of is to be selected for the uniqueness that I bring in my character. And so, again, all of these are a little rough. They're not exactly clear or fluid in their presentation, but I'm just getting them all out there, and we will proceed, and hoping it will all get a little bit cleaner, a little bit more clear as we go forward. So thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there. All right, more to come. Have a great day.